Om Shri Swami Narayanaaya Namaha. Om Shri Ghansham Maharajaya Namaha. Om Shri Sadgurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to SwaminarayanSpirituality.com and all of the related podcast and YouTube channels connected to these talks. I want to offer my prostrations to all the great sages and to Shriji Maharaj, Shri Swaminarayan Bhagwan, through the blessings of all the sages and blessings of God. May the following contemplation be accurate and may it be liberating, first for the speaker and for anybody else who may find benefit from this. We're continuing from last time, where the question about Maya is being explored further. So I'm just going to pick it up from last time, where Shriji Maharaj has explained Maya as that which comes as an obstacle, as an avarana, in the dhyan of the murti of Paramatma. It is a very practical guidance, very practical way of doing dhyan, and it is a relational connection with Ishta Devata, with Sakar Paramatma. This is Vachanamrut now. So I'm just going to explain Vachanamrut and again link in other perspectives also. But from Vachanamrut, specifically from Vachanamrut point of view, Maharaj is always talking about upasana of the Paramatma with form. So the Tattva Gnan that is presented in Vachanamrut is called Pancha Bheda. It is sometimes interpreted as 5 tattvas, although that is not really stated that way in Vachanamrut, but you could interpret it that way perhaps. But it is called Panch Bhed. Bhed would mean differentiation. I mean, Sachin's humble perspective on this is that there is actually only one tattva, that is Bhagwan Purushottam Narayan, Parabrahma. There's only one, Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti. There's only one tattva, but it has 5 differentiations. So the word Bhed, in again Sachin's humble opinion, means differentiation. You could say tattva. Even many great saints have discussed that as, or interpreted that as 5 tattvas. But they are, even though they are kind of really within each other, they are all within the body of Bhagwan Purushottam. This is Swaminarayaniya Tattvagnan. That the Jeev, Ishwar, Mahamaya, Akshara Brahma, the entire Akshardham itself, all of the liberated beings from all of the abodes, everything that exists and everything that is transcendental is all within the body, within the sharir of Bhagwan Purushottam. So there is actually only one tattva. That is only the swarup of Bhagwan Purushottam. Bhagwan Narayan, Purushottam Narayan. Now we'll talk more about what that actually means as we move ahead further. But for our purposes, from where we are in the body, with our mind, with our senses, with the world outside, the murti of God, Bhagwan ni murti nu dhyan. So this dhyan is of the murti, with the great reliance on and great feeling inside the heart, with great belief, nishta. It is called. Nishta means great conviction that the Supreme Paramatma is present in the form that is in front of me. As I mentioned before, you can look at this in many different ways. One way is to look at it in terms of the incarnations of God that have come, Bhagwan Ram, Bhagwan Krishna, etc. And then in this case of Swaminarayan Sampradaya, Maharaj himself, during his own time, was considered to be Shri Purushottam Bhagwan. He himself has said so in Garada Madhya 13 and many other places, that tattva that is within that divine light, Tejno Rashi, that tattva is Brahman, or you can say that is the, non-material, non-physical consciousness that Advait Vedanta even talks about. So that tattva has form, that is the source of that light. It's not a light like sunlight. It's not like that. It is something much, much different from that. And the Atma is of the same Tattva. The Atma is Brahman only. Right? So from a Tattva point of view, the Atman is there. And from Shakti point of view, that is the Prakriti. That is the manifestation of the material universes and all of the intermediate Ishvaras. That is all underneath Prakriti, Mool Prakriti, Mahamaya. Which is, from Swaminarayana Tattvagnan point of view, that is a power of Bhagavan. It's within the Anvay Shakti. It is called Anvay and Vyatirek. So Akshara Brahma is also Anvay, meaning fully present within Mahamaya, but also separate from Mahamaya. Parabrahman is fully present within Mahamaya, but also separate from Mahamaya. But Mahamaya is not separate from Parabrahma in the Swaminarayana Tattvagnan. Nor are the Jivatma or Ishvaras or anybody or anything. Everything is dependent on the Purushottam Bhagavan only. This is the Swaminarayana Tattvagnan. There are obviously different perspectives. In my study and humble study in this, I believe I have been able to link them all together, but that is a much more extensive and more technical discussion. We'll get to that at some point in the future, right? So nobody's wrong. No Sanatana Dharma Acharya or perspective is wrong because it is coming from Anubhav. It is called Darshan Shastra. Maharaj himself is saying that I'm speaking from my Anubhav, from my experience, from what I'm seeing. Pratyaksh detail baat. In Gujarati he said, I've seen, like he's using that language so that we can understand, like when we see something with our own eyes, if we see the color red with our own eyes, we know that what that is. That's our own experience, right? We see this world outside with our own eyes. That is called pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means that is known through our senses. So Maharaj is using that word in a little different way. He's talking about the spiritual tattvas or the spiritual dimension. And he says, I'm seeing that, and I'm telling you. I'm seeing it, I'm telling you. Right? So that's what he's saying here. Others have done the same thing if they are truly enlightened. We are all sadhaks. We are trying to reach these ideas and realize these ideas. We want to get to that point of anubhav, aparoksha anubhuti. That's what this dhyan is all about. When Maharaj has shown this particular path of dhyan on the murti, dhyan is the connection with the murti. It is a deep, emotional, intellectual, and energetic relationship with God. That's what it is. We have emotional, intellectual, on all kinds of energetic relationships with everything in Prakriti. That's the big difference. We have children, we have grandchildren, we have pets, we have people, friend circles, the names and forms in general outside. We have a relationship with them, and we need that also. That is also part of life. That is life in many ways. But it is within the world of names and forms that the one supreme form of Bhagavan is manifested here as the incarnations of God and as the Avatari Swarup himself. Bhagavan Swaminarayan is considered to be Avataron ke Avatari, the cause of all incarnations in many of the Swaminarayaniya traditions. Again, there's always controversies about these things. I won't go into all that right now. These are quite profound points. All right, so the Avatari means the source of incarnations. And then incarnations come out, they're created through Virat Purush, and they go back into Virat Purush. They have their own abodes, they have their own Vaibhav, Aishwarya. So many things are like this. And these are all transcendental realities. They're not part of our usual understanding. And see, the part of the problem is that we are living in a conceptual world. Shriji Maharaj doesn't want us to live in that conceptual world. He wants to make it real for us. That's why Akhanda Vritti comes into the picture. That's where Garada Pratham 9 comes into the picture. Maharaj is saying that you're desiring to see something transcendental, but that which is transcendental is here. Recognize it. It's a matter of recognizing that which is beyond, that alokik means beyond the lokas, is present here. And that conviction, feeling, faith, realization, when that happens in the murti of Paramatma, which also means the saint saints who are holding God in every part of their being, they're also called Murti of God. And we also want to reach that stage, that saintly stage where God only remains within us. I'm using this word God from a monotheistic standpoint. All right, so that is our goal. Otherwise, we have the three gunas of Maya, the world of names and forms, endless number of species and in yonis that we have keep going through. Where's the end in all of that? The end comes when we engage in dhyan. When we engage at that level of dhyan that Maharaj is talking about in this question, this question about Maya, that to transgress Maya is to recognize Maya, because otherwise we will never be able to get out of Maya. In fact, we don't even have the ability to come out of Maya. Maya is Shakti. Shakti meaning Mahamaya. She has to release, the Mahadevi. She has to release the Jivatma from her womb into the Brahman. This is again Vachanamrut Tattvagnan. The Mahamaya herself merges into the Brahman. So they're one. Brahma Shakti Abhed, as Ramakrishna Paramahansa stated. That point is already there in Vachanamrut. It is already there. Vachanamrut includes all of the perspectives. It doesn't reject any perspective that is bona fide. So the Shakti that has been holding Maya from time immemorial, Anadi Kalthi, Bhagwanni Maya ni andar Jeev Karan Sharire Sahit Rahe Che. That's the more technical Gujarati there. That with the causal body, it has been remaining from beginningless time inside Mahamaya, uncreated by God, uncreated by Parabrahman. Bhagwan Purushottam has not created the Jivatmas. The Jivatma are Anadi. Paramatma is Anadi, meaning Bhagwan that is beyond Akshar is Anadi. And so Anadi means uncreated, eternally existing. That is why Maharaj said the five Bhed are Anadi, Panch Bhed Anadi, Jeev Koti, Ishwar Koti, Mahamaya, Akshara Brahma, and Purushottam Narayan. These are called Anadi Bhed or Anadi Tattva, we can say. We can say that also. That's all right. I'm a little hesitant to say that sometimes, but for our understanding from where we are, it's probably all right to say that, I think. Again, Sachin's interpretation on that. But, in my mind, humbly, I don't like to use language that is not in the Vachanamrut. If Sachin is talking about Vachanamrut, I don't want to add some language that is not specifically spoken there. Maharaj has never mentioned Panch Tattva. Maharaj has said Panch Bhed. There's no expression anywhere in the 273 Vachanamrut which says Panch Tattva. That doesn't mean that they're not Tattvas. He just didn't use that language. So I want to be true to his language, to his words only. And then I can show what the interpretations are from others. So that is just my own thinking behind this. Maybe a little bit more scholarly bent, to be true to the words themselves and not to add something and definitely not to twist any language of any kind. That is absolutely unacceptable. And that would be true in exposition for any scripture, whether it is the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, the Vivek Chudamani, any one that we have taken up in other platforms, the same principle applies. So anyway, the dhyan that Maharaj is talking about has to do with Mahima. So I'm going to continue from where we were last time. And again, there's a lot of Tattvagnan obviously involved in this. I tend to lean towards that a lot. Sachin tends to lean towards that because the interest and a lot of resonance is there with that. But I want to continue from the footnote that is in the BAPS app. And again, same disclaimer as again, there's no intention to promote or criticize anyone. This is a research process. I am giving these references based on research. These apps are available for free, and this is just for reference purposes to enunciate the more intricate ways to understand the answer that Maharaj has given, that Shriji Maharaj has given. All right, so to continue from last time, Param Pujya Pramukh Swamiji Maharaj gave his perspective on dhyan. So I'm going to continue the answer that he gave, and we'll see if we can kind of make some progress in that today. So he said here, Bhagwan na santanu gnyan etle dhyan. So the first point he said, as I mentioned last time, the knowledge, the gnyan, the wisdom of God, who is God, and of the great saints, their mahima, their glory. That is Gnan. We talked about that before. એટલે માત્ર સંભાળવું નહીં, પણ આ સાધુ ધર્મ જ્ઞાન વૈરાગ્ય ભક્તિ વગેરે ગુણાતીત છે. Gunwala che, gunatiche, meaning that the enlightened saint, there's a lot of emphasis placed in the sampradaya today, whether it is BAPS or any of the other organizations, about the importance of great saints, Sant Sadhuta. In Swaminarayana path, the importance of saintliness is paramount. There is no realization or progress on this path without saintliness. That is the absolute base, absolute foundation. So that's what Swamiji is mentioning here. He says that to recognize an enlightened saint, a fully enlightened saint, it's a recognition that the saint has, that the sage has dharma, gnan, vairagya, bhakti, and many other amazing qualities, the 64 qualities, etc. Okay, we talked about that before. The saint is beyond the three gunas of Maya, gunatit. Now, how do you recognize that? Let's talk about that today. We'll talk about the other 4 points later on. How do we recognize if a person is beyond sattvagun, rajogun, tamogun? We might be able to recognize that a person is beyond rajogun, tamogun, that they don't have the vasanas of this world and rajsik, tamsik. How do you know? How do we know somebody's beyond sattvagun? How is that even possible to recognize that? That's a big conundrum, because we really cannot recognize that. Someone who is beyond sattvagun and someone who is completely sattvic, you may not be able to tell the difference between the two. But there's a massive difference between the two. The sattvagun is also part of Maya. So to recognize the difference, it would have to be, it's where the sage is tapped into a dimension that is transcendental, and it's the presence that you can recognize, that a person can recognize from inside. It is called alokik drishti. It is to recognize that this individual, this being, is living in a transcendental dimension. That's the only way you would know it. It's not by talks or not by reading anything or anything like that. I mean, those are just all indicators. But to see it from inside, that this is alokik sthiti, beyond sattvagun. Sattvagun, many saints have that. Yes, they're supposed to have that, in fact. But that's not it. That's not the goal still. And you cannot, there's no sadhana to come out of sattvagun. That is by grace, by krupa, by the grace of God. He takes the bhakta, the mumukshu, out of sattvagun into the gunatit state. So gunatit means beyond the three gunas of Maya, beyond sattvagun itself. So that is a dimension where the Atma is realized, Brahman is realized. It is not possible to describe that, what that is. Nobody can describe it, because any description is within the realm of thoughts, realm of ideas. We cannot describe it. It is a matter of direct perception, or khan, as Vachanamrut says, to recognize. And that recognition is from inside. It is also by grace. We cannot recognize without grace. Everything is grace. But that grace happens in its own way, in its own time, when it's supposed to happen. Right? So that is called gunatit. Let's stop here for now. We'll talk more about this as we move ahead. Hari Om. Shri Sadguru Bhyo Namaha. Sajanand Swami Maharaj Ki Jai.